Hi, today is July 4th, the 244 years in the history of the United States of America. It's a blessed thing to be in this beautiful country, but what is going on in this country right now is quite mind boggling. And it beats the mind that a lot of people don't seem to understand or even know what America stands for. America stands for braveness, it stands for peace around the world, it stands for help, it stands for humanity. It's one of the greatest nations in the world. And I'm proud and I thank God for giving me the privilege to be in this nation. I tell you. And some people who are here in this nation doesn't understand at all because I'm talking from the point of view of where I was coming from or where I was before I got here in the United States of America. So that being said, this month is also my year and the month of birth. I was born in July 22nd. So I feel so attached to this country, based on the month when this country gained independence and the month I was also born. Invariably, I lost my dad as well, in July 1st, 1989. It was a very huge one. But all being said, I am happy and I thank God for giving me the privilege to be in this country. Number one. Number two, I was doing some research and I discovered that there is this national anthem, that I have never heard before. It has like three stanzas of the United States. I don't know how to sing those stanzas, but I could do much I can. So I was doing some research on YouTube and I saw the rationale or the story behind the Star Spangled Banner. Hold on a moment and listen. It's going to take like 12 minutes, but if you can listen to it, it's going to motivate you just like I'm being motivated. Again, it's also motivating me to support my Igbo race, whether you like it or not. It's motivating me the more. And one day I'm going to talk about the Biafran national anthem, whether you like it or not. I'm going to talk about it. It's worth talking about, like what is happening today. But the most important thing is that let us be united. In Igbo race, let's be united with our neighbors and make sure that we liberate ourselves like the people, forefathers who stood their grounds, spilled their blood, and stood firm against the imperialists, the wickedness of the imperialists called Britain. Listen to this.
There was a lawyer once. His name was Francis Scott Key. He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it. It's in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the national anthem. It is our song as an American. We go, however, to a ball game. We stand in our church services and we sing the words of that song, and they float over our minds and our lips, and we don't even realize what we're singing. Most of us have memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with the mother country, Britain. because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners and the British had prisoners. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day, in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity, men. And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free.
Yes, sir.
He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem.
Listen, the British can never be trusted. They can never, ever be trusted. Keep listening.
He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. It won't matter. And Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that?
They said they're going to remove it from the face of the earth. Listen, this is what the British government does. They always give ultimatum. And they want to tell you that if you do not believe them, if you do not do what they say, they're going to remove you from the face of the earth. And they thought that Americans were the Indians. No, these are whites like them and also blacks from all around the world that they have brought in as slaves. And they are giving ultimatum to the whites that are here, telling them, we are going to obliterate you if you do not surrender. Keep listening.
He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet.
Wow.
He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war is over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort. He said, don't worry about it. They said, we've left them a way out. And he said, what's that? He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule. Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen.
Listen, the British never understand up to today what really happened at that fort. It took the blood and the bravery of these men to make sure that that flag is still standing. It is the last man standing. And America independence was declared in July 4th, 1776. Keep listening.
And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds. The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch. As twilight began to fall, and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset.
Yes.
Suddenly, the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, "Tell us where the flag is. What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us."
Okay, now this is the catch. I wonder why some people will not stand for the flag when the national anthem is being sung. Tell me the reason why. But you're gonna hear, we are coming. It's not done yet. This could take up to 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But I want to make something clear. This flag, the Star Spangled Flag, need to be respected and need to be held in a high esteem, because people lay down their life for the freedom that we are experiencing. That reminds me of my home country, the Biafra land. Men failed, men put their life on the line, and today men are still putting their life on the line for the freedom and restoration and emancipation of the Biafran nation. It will come in our lifetime. The men that put their life and blood on the line to make sure that this country stood said the same thing. We are going to make sure that this happen in our lifetime. Keep listening.
1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling. Every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, "It's still up. It's not down." The admiral came and he said, "Your people are insane." He said, "What's the matter with them?" He said, "Don't they understand this is an impossible situation?" Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees. The admiral said,
This is the mindset, and it brings me back to the Biafran cause. We have to stand on our feet before we will die on our knees. That will stand us out. We need to stand on our feet, tall, high, like this spangled flag. That we will rise up that Biafran flag one day and say, we will all stand on our feet before we die on our knees. We'll first of all stand. Then if you want to mow us down, go ahead.
"That we have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down."
Wow.
He said, "We don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that." But he said, "Now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point."
The British never understood why. But I'm not going to tell you why, but you're going to hear it from this man that is narrating the rationale behind the anthem and the flag, and why Americans can die for this flag. But what is going on right now is that the media and the left socialist globalists are going about trying to destroy this flag that was unable to be destroyed with the life and the blood of men in 1776. And men are still holding this flag up. And I want to tell you, I'm proud to be an American of Igbo extraction and a Biafran by birth. Nobody can take that away from me.
Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful. All that he could hear was the men down below praying.
Listen.
The prayer. God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it.
Wow.
Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the rampart was tall enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds. The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he'd found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when it had fallen, but men, fathers, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died.
They put their life on the
Their
line for the
bodies were
flag.
removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Or the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The debt was demanded. The price, it was paid.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner We're the land of the free and the home of the brave.
So who can see these and mess up with America? Who in a right mind can even ever think of destroying this country? It, it I don't know. It's quite I don't know. I don't know how to express this. It's so unfortunate that people could ever think about saying some things about this country. I know this country was built by imperfect men, men who are not perfect, but they have given us something which a perfect God has given them to set up a nation under God that will benefit mankind. There has never been a nation like this in the modern history, and there will never ever gonna be. It can never be compete with any. So with this, I leave you with one word. We are imperfect people, but we serve a perfect God. And when we serve a perfect God, we are going to stand on our feet because we know whom we believe before we will die on our knees, because we know that we hold something that we believe that God has given us the strength to believe in. Thank you.